A threat from Iran may be one step closer to reality at this hour after the Trump administration, in essence, plugged its nose last night and certified Iran's compliance with the UN nuclear deal, but in the same breath announced today it will slap new sanctions on Iran for its support of terrorism and ballistic missile development. The Tehran Times reporting that Iran's foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, said ahead of the certification that his country can withdraw from the requirements of the nuclear deal if the Trump administration violates its obligations by, say, handing down new sanctions. Richard Haass is the president of the Council on Foreign Relations. He is also the author of A World in Disarray, American Foreign Policy and the Crisis of the Old Order. And Vice is set to release a documentary tied to that book, correct?
Correct.
HBO this Friday. The Iranians threatening, we could jump out of this deal and start developing nuclear weapons because you are sanctioning us. Is that just bark and not a lot of bite here from the Iranians?
I think both sides are essentially barking, Liz. I don't think the United States is going to unilaterally pull out of the deal. It would isolate us, not Iran. I don't think Iran's going to unilaterally pull out of the deal. It would bring about new sanctions. The sanctions we just introduced are outside the deal. The deal's essentially nuclear only. And what these sanctions do is react, among other things, to Iranian support for terrorism or ballistic missile development. So the deal never precluded the possibility we would do just this.
Well, you know, the U.S. tried to get more things up front, but didn't try hard enough. You look at the missile testing that they've done, whether they're not nuclear but still ballistic, you know, transcontinental, who knows what else, and the threats against Israel. I mean, writing on missiles, we're going to pull Israel out of the history books, and it's ridiculous. But I think the president was very much caught between a rock and a hard place. As you say, the deal was there, and ballistics weren't included in it. But just on Friday, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters told us why we're stuck with the agreement, and then I'll have you react.
We can't just tear it up, and I think, you know, Trump's hands are tied. Mattis doesn't like this, but he recommends going forward and certifying it, because were we to unilaterally withdraw from the deal, we would be the bad guys.
So what do we do, Richard, about this Iran problem? And it is a problem. They're funding militants, they're funding Hamas, and they threaten Israel. What do we do about that? We just sit there and recertify?
Well, we recertify because the deal, again, is a narrow nuclear deal, but we have the rest of the foreign policy and national security toolkit to deal with everything else they're doing. There's nothing in the deal that precludes our helping our friends, putting pressure on what Iran is doing in Syria or Lebanon or anywhere else, adding sanctions as we just did. So the deal is not symbolic of a good relationship with Iran. It simply parks or carves out this one area. That's all.
To North Korea, because it's not mentioned a lot in the past 48 hours, but South Korea is getting very antsy and concerned because that tension had ramped up so much in the past couple of weeks that now South Korea is interested in having talks with North Korea. Also, China and North Korea want the U.S. to remove its THAAD missile system that it's parked right there, an anti-missile system in South Korea. Should the U.S. do that, or does that just show that under pressure the U.S. rolls over? I don't think President Trump will be interested in removing that THAAD system.
Well, he shouldn't remove it. This missile defensive system is a direct response to the North Korean missile threat. We should keep it there. We still have, as you know, 28,500 American troops right up against the 38th parallel. It's China's doing. If China had used more influence against North Korea, we wouldn't have the need for that missile system. So we should keep it. Indeed, one of our issues of difference with the new president of South Korea is he has put advancing the defensive missile system, the THAAD system, on hold, and I think we should go ahead with it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like nice insurance policy in the form of military weaponry. And again, Seoul, Korea, is 30 miles away from that 38th parallel, the DMZ, demilitarized zone. I find it ironic it's called the demilitarized zone because it's the most heavily fortified zone on planet Earth, or at least close to it. But what next with Kim Jong-un?
Well, I think the question for the administration is whether it's prepared under any circumstances to have a negotiation with them, what kind of sanctions we put on the Chinese to get them to use the influence they say they don't have, but in fact they do. But your story is an important story, Liz, because this shows that the new government of South Korea and the new U.S. government are not on the same page.
Right.
To simply have normalization talks with the North not linked to their missile and nuclear threat, I think is a questionable idea.
It's good to see you. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you.
Good luck with the HBO special. Richard Haass,
Appreciate it.
Council on Foreign Relations President.